Crouse.
Hey movie lovers, it's June 3rd. There's a lot of films opening in the theaters this weekend. A couple of them will even appeal to people a little bit older than 15, which I think is probably good news for the older movie lovers tuning in today. Okay, Midnight in Paris. Let's talk about that one first up. It's Woody Allen's new film, and I have to tell you, it's a real return to form for Woody. He does for Paris in 1920 what he did for Manhattan in the 1970s. In the story, Owen Wilson plays a writer on vacation in Paris. He writes screenplays in Hollywood, but of course, he's on vacation to write his great American novel a la Hemingway and Fitzgerald and all those people who went to Paris in the 20s for inspiration. He wants to find that similar sort of inspiration, and then a funny thing happens. He steps away from his normal life and his fiancée, Rachel McAdams, and right back into the 1920s, where he hangs out with Picasso, Hemingway, Dali, and lots of others, played with some really strong performances, particularly from Adrian Brody, who seems to be having a whole lot of fun here playing Salvador Dali. And then, of course, he falls in love with Marion Cotillard, and frankly, who wouldn't? The movie is worth the price of admission just to see her wearing a flapper gown walking around the streets of Paris. He flip-flops back and forth between present day and the 1920s before coming to realize that there is no golden age, that the present is where he really wants to be. This is a really, really good film that will make you want to jump on a plane and go to Paris right away. Also opening, Good Neighbors. Jacob Tierney, Emily Hampshire, and Jay Baruchel are back together for the second film that they've all collaborated on. The first was The Trotsky, which came out last year, and that was kind of a Ferris Bueller high school comedy about a young guy who thought he was the reincarnation of Leon Trotsky. This one is a much different thing. Also co-stars Scott Speedman. Takes place in an apartment building. There is a serial killer outside in the real world in Montreal somewhere, and that has an effect on all their lives. And there is a death scene in here which is one of the grossest and yet one of the funniest that I've seen on film in a very long time. This is a really, really dark comedy, but it's really good stuff. It's called Good Neighbors, directed by Jacob Tierney. Also opening is Beginners, starring Ewan McGregor and Christopher Plummer. They play father and son, and I don't want to tell you too much about this movie except because I don't want to give anything away. One of the pleasures of this film is to let it sort of unravel itself in front of you. But Christopher Plummer plays a widower. He is the wife, or his wife has just passed away, and of course the wife is also Ewan McGregor's mother, and he decides at that point, Christopher Plummer does, to come out of the closet at age 75, and the movie is about the effect that that has on Ewan McGregor and his headspace, and this is good stuff. Also, Melanie Laurent from Inglourious Bastards in here, really, really good. Also opening this weekend, the movie that everybody's talking about, X-Men First Class. Now, X-Men First Class is a prequel. We've already had X-Men 1, 2, and 3, directed by Bryan Singer. First two, really good. Third one, not so much. We've gone back to the beginning of the story. Charles Xavier, Professor Charles Xavier, played by James McAvoy, and Magento, Jesus Christ, what's his name? Magneto. And of course, the movie that everybody's talking about this weekend, X-Men First Class, opens. Now, X-Men First Class is a prequel to the 3 X-Men movies, which have already played in theaters and made barrel loads of money. In this one, we go back all the way to 1962, and it's the beginning of things. It is how Charles Xavier and Magneto put together the team of X-Men, which went on to appear in the other 3 movies. It's about a lot of other things, though, too. It's about tolerance. It's about societal context and their place as mutants within that. It's also very, very timely. There's a line in this movie where someone says, "Security is more important than liberty," which is something that sounds scarily prescient for the days that we live in. So it is kind of like, if you compare Thor, for instance, a big superhero movie that came out a few weeks ago, Thor was kind of like a big thundering heavy metal song. Imagine that. Well, this is more like a Radiohead disc. It's brainy, but it's still loads of fun. It does tend to be a little bit on the chatty side. It doesn't have the template that a lot of summer action movies had, which means there's not an action sequence every 10 minutes or so, but there is a lot of talk. And the only thing that I can say about that is that perhaps if they wanted to shorten it up a little bit, maybe tighten it for the DVD release, you can cut out a few of January Jones's lines. She plays a superhero, but I'll tell you, acting, not one of her superpowers. I recommend XMen First Class. It's really good stuff. I mean, I think that they went an unexpected way. It doesn't really feel like a summer blockbuster, but I think it's smart, I think it's entertaining, and I think that it'll be interesting to see what they do with part 2 of the prequel to X-Men.
Richard Crouse.